This is the big story. And I now have my guest in the studio, and together with Yemi, we'll be making sense of what we have on this show this morning. And he's no other person than Oba Ayedu Adiola Yinka, the Obanla Adimola of Yoruba Kingdom. Now, he's here with me in the studio. Good to have you in the studio, sir.
Good morning, my brother.
All right. There's a lot to talk about on this show. And people have been talking about the fact that Africans are gradually erasing their own history, whether knowingly or unknowingly. As a custodian of history, a custodian of Yoruba tradition, how have you been trying in any way to make sure that history stays alive?
Okay. Yoruba nation has evolved over times. And we have our history, pre-colonial days. And even after the colonial masters, took over the protectorate, we maintained our history. But shortly after the independence, a little bit of distortion came in via political brigandage of the colonial masters, now trying to twist the situation and the position in their favor to be able to manipulate the citizenry of Nigeria as a whole, as a country. Don't forget, Yoruba is a nation, Nigeria is a country. But as custodians of culture and tradition, this had been maintained over times in the sense that that's the essence of the Obaship institution. The Obaship institution evolved over times, starting with the days of Oduduwa, or what you can liken to Ife Empire, to the Yoruba Empire, to Ibadan Empire, and coming down to the days of what political manipulation we have as Western, or the West. For the political advantage, they call it the West in those days, Western region.
Western region.
Which happens to be the Yoruba land, that extended to today's Delta State and up to Kwara. And then, as a matter of fact, Lagos, we had like 6 or 8 states, what they call middle, Bendel and the rest of it, into it. But in the process of military incursion into politics, now, the military men, when they come in, the first thing they do is to suspend the constitution and then come up with decrees. So when they suspend the constitution, then you have nothing left other than being rolled on into the military dictates. But the Obaship institution, as I said, had been intact, maintaining the culture. And when we say the culture has to do with the way of life of a people at a given time.
Some people say Africans do not have history. And then at that point, you begin to ask questions on why some other people, especially in the Yoruba race, tell conflicting stories. You hear a story from here, oh, this is how Yorubas came to be, and then another person says something different. So they are conflicting stories. So if there is truly history, why do we have conflicting stories?
Okay, thank you very much. You see, Africans, we have our history. As I said, the colonial masters, when they were trying to divide Africa for their own advantage in order to be able to take our resources. They decided to give us something to replace our history, particularly religion. Religion. You know, we have our history. They said Mungo Park discovered River Niger. Have you ever heard of that before?
It's in the storybooks. It's on.
Okay,
It's
but
on.
when Mungo Park came to River Niger, some people took him round. You fathom that into logics and see what that means. So I discovered Dominion TV. But meanwhile, Samson piloted me into the studio, settled me down and all that. Is that not fraud? That is a colonial fraud to say we don't have history. We have our history. At the time, it was suspended, as I said, for the political expediencies of the masters then. And what still, when the independence came in, they were trying to manipulate the history of the people to suit each political agenda of the reigning parties, or as the case may be.
Now, let's narrow it down to the Yoruba race.
Okay.
Yoruba race is known to have a rich history, culture, tradition, and so many people tend to learn about the Yoruba people just because they know that there's a special way of doing things.
Oh,
now, we want to go into the obaship and rulership in the Yoruba kingdom. So many things have been happening lately. And do you think the effect of the incursion of the colonial masters watered down the Yoruba kingship to an extent that so many things are happening now that some people call it an anomaly?
Quite right. It did. The colonial masters started the damage. They handed over to our political leaders, what we can call the founding fathers of Nigeria then, the First Republic, or as the case may be, the people that took over from the colonial masters. Because of the Western orientation that these people had, you know, when they were agitating for independence, they were one. We talk of Pan-Africanism, of the then Dr. Kwame Osage Nkrumah of Ghana, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, and the rest of them like that. So, but soon after they took over, when we had the independence, then one would have expected the political dynamism of the people to be domesticated according to the culture of the people. That's what it has to be. Unfortunately, a new system of governance got imported, and that's when you had the parliamentary system, presidential system, or as the case may be. Now, this led to the drift of the system of the people, the customs, the traditions, the values, the ethos of our forefathers, which were there. Don't forget, in the days of Oduduwa at Ile-Ife, Ile-Ife had, as a community, had their own system of governance. There was many obas within the community, or the Ife, you know, kingdom then. But Oduduwa came in and organized them into a cohesive kingdom, which he led as a powerful man. Now, from there, the story of Oromiyan, the grandson of Oduduwa, that evolved with another kingdom, the so-called Oyo Empire, you know, they had their system of governance. Benin, they have their system of governance, the Ogiso system, before Oromiyan got there. Now, when you look at the Yoruba culture, you see, the Yoruba people, very specially blessed nation of the world. They had and they have their own system of governance. For instance, in Oyo Empire, we have the Oyomesi system of governance, which predated the colonial, maybe the Western presidential system, or the so-called parliamentary system
of government,
or as the case may be. In Oyomesi system of governance, we have the Alaafin of Oyo as having to be the head of the executive arm of the government.
Who are the Oyomesis?
The Oyomesis are there as you have the Senate, still intact till today. Then we have the Odonis as the judiciary. They are in charge of discipline and administration of, what do you call it? The system of law or judicial aspect to be able to put checks and balances. Alaafin doesn't have the absolute power of himself. Oyomesi can checkmate him till tomorrow, till today. Oyomesi can even impeach by saying, "Wipe ki oba koshiba."
Yes.
So we have that. That predated presidential or parliamentary system. What nonsense are they telling us that we don't have? We have. It's even better. As a matter of fact, should we not ask for what we can call a reparation for stealing our system of governance and then giving it this English coinage and calling it this or that? So we have. But it's unfortunate that the greed in African man has created some problems. What we call leadership has to do with service. But what do you find today? Leadership in governance is like business. They want to make money. Money they cannot spend. I think that's a madness. So, way back, when leaders will evolve, you don't need to have money. You don't have to be a billionaire. It has to do with the candle in you, the anointing. That's why in some cases you hear that one differ, or it was adjudged that somebody like this should be the leader, even where Ifa will not come in. So, and the person will be there to serve, but not to count in billions of naira that will have been, amassed, stolen, embezzled. So, these are the ways where we need to look inward. And if there is anything that we can do to regulate our system of governance with our people, to know that when you are going into governance, you are going in to serve and not really to amass wealth.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question for you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much. You spoke about the fact that, colonial masters came to disrupt the culture, our culture. So I want to ask you, would they have been successful without the effort, or let me say, because some African leaders collaborated with these people. Because we've read history that a lot of them, even they had a lot to do with trading of slaves.
Slave trade.
Exactly. So they helped these people. That was what we read. But I would love to hear your opinion on this matter. Would they have been successful without their input?
Oh, you're absolutely right. There's no way. Wọ́n ní tí olèlé ò bá jà, títà ò lè rí lékó. But that implies that if there's no insider collaboration, there can never be external invasion made successful. So, and as you said, yes, that happened. The so-called slave trade masters, they came in with gin, bags of salt, and money, and some other things to give to these, our so-called leaders, our forefathers, our obas particularly, in order to be able to trade their men into slavery. That happened, no doubt. It was a kind of a system that was made regrettable in the African system of governance and rulership. So, and that was why Lagos particularly, you heard of Lagos colony? That was where the slave masters were, harbor and then ready to pack our men away into slavery. So, and we thank God for the abolition of our slave trade, which made us to be able to settle down in a way and see to what we can do for ourselves. And then the fight for independence, which again granted us the republic, for which we are still trying to work out,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about religion. Let's look at the current burial that was done for Awujale of Ijebuland of Adetono.
Yes.
A lot of persons have said that because of the concept of Western education that has crept into our culture, it has affected a lot of things. And most traditionalists, I read online, they have come out to say that around this time, a lot of persons are saying because they are educated, they traveled abroad to study, they really do not see the need for some of this traditional right and culture. What do you make of that? What's the role of education in all of this?
Education. When you talk about education, you see education has to do with having to be cultured for your future engagement. Do you know education can be informal?
Yeah.
Okay. If you agree on that. Now, that some of us travel abroad or something. Now, okay, let me be precise. The then Prince Chikiru Adetono Kayode was away in UK for accountancy studies. When in 1959 or thereabout, and then there was before the Adetono, the Oba that died, and then the Ifa actually picked on the father of Oba, late Oba Shikiru Adetono. But the Ogbeni Oja, that's Odutola, that's the regent, okay? Thought of having educated man on the throne for some reasons. I will not go into that. When we had, in those days with the colonial masters, as I told you, some of the learned obas, the educated ones, they were very few. Of them, we have like the Alake of Eba. It was Alake of Abeokuta. because he was educated, so he was able to speak in English to communicate with the colonial masters, the white and all that. So he's the one that will be called upon to be able to disseminate information onto others. And in that, it's like giving him the edge as the leader. We have Alake of Ake, we have Oshile of Okeono, we have Bagura of Agura, Agura of Bagura, and then the Olowu of Ofu in Abeokuta. Yes. That's the way we have it. So that was what led to the Alake of Egba. So, and with all this, don't forget, the Yoruba nation have the tribal groups, as in Egba, Ijebu, Oyo, Ondo, Ekiti, Ijesha, no, Ijesha, Ibomina. Okay. These are different
clans,
tribes, yeah, within the Yoruba nation. So, Ogbeni Oja Odutola then thought of, oh, we should have educated man on the throne. And so that was how he persuaded the father of Shikiru, Kayode Adetono, Prince then, who was away in London in studies of accountancy, to say, let your son be. So he went for the late Oba Shikiru Adetono. As a matter of fact, when that happened, as what I can tag a radical on the throne, the then Prince Shikiru Kayode Adetono, when he was approached, he was in London with the likes of, I don't know whether you know them, Bola Ige, Ajay Igbe, you know, all these ones were, those were the contemporaries studying law. So when he was approached, Oba Shikiru Adetono told them when he was being invited to come home for this assignment, he said, no, they better leave him. He said, no, why? He said, no, it won't work. Oh. It won't work.
He had other plans for himself.
No, not that. Shikiru Adetono had been I won't call him a revolutionary, but a kind of independent mind. Okay. A radical.
Self-assured.
Yes. Who felt that, look, and you see, the truth of it was that he told them that they better leave him, because some of these things that they do, that he may not agree with some of them. He made it clear. And it was these two people that I said, the Ajay Igbe then
and Bola
Ige, who said, don't worry, you go first. Go and have it. But if eventually it wouldn't work, then come back. We will contribute money to sponsor your studies, because he was in England on scholarship then. So that's how he came home. So from day one, he had been a radical. What I call a radical on the throne. Yes, what about this? What about that? Like, there is a story of whether if Oba dies, then the closest servant in the palace,
called Abobaku,
will have to be, you know, sacrificed with him, so that that one will be carrying the luggage
in the afterlife.
In the afterlife. So, which is like to Shikiru Adetono and to some of us, what's all this nonsense? So, and then we thank God that have been abolished, even in Oyo. So, that is how he came in. So, but The concept of education, as you asked,
Okay.
whether the education influenced it, whether it was a kind of westernized culture that infiltrated into the system. No, 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 I don't think so. See, culture in itself is dynamic. We are living in a dynamic process. The whole system of life is crumbling, and new ways of life are fast emerging. In those days, we have tribal marks. You find that again. That's part of our culture.
Okay, you're talking about radical changes in the belief system
Yes.
in Africa. Now, I'll talk about a trending story of the Oluwo of Iwo land,
Okay.
Oba Abdul Rashid and
Okay.
Teluwan, who said, look, the recent happening in Ogun State, in the Jebodi to be precise, the burial of the late Awujale, is a precedence, and that gives every other king leverage to be buried the way they wish to be buried. Now, some are now saying, look, you cannot become a king traditionally and say, look, and when I'm gone, I want to be buried as a Muslim or as a Christian. So there has to be a distinct difference between what you have chosen and what happens when you are no longer there. So is Oluwo making a point here, or just another way of watering down the tradition we are talking about?
Oluwo is trying to deduce a fact from the recent happening. You see, in Ogun State, a bill was presented to the State Assembly requesting that Obaship institution should be done in a transparent way of new day system, and that is installation should be according to the religion of the Oba elect. Prior to that, the Ijebu people came together. You know, I told you we have the Ijebu, different from Edba, different from Yewa. No, in Ogun State.
In Ogun State, Yewa.
Yeah.
The Aworis too.
Good, fine. So now, Ijebu people came together. You see, I can remember on some occasions when they will have the installation of some of these obas. I think I've attended 3 or 4 where the late Awujale will invite me. We are very close. We ate, we dined together. He held one of my highest point of life in history when Awujale, as arrogant as people thought he was. No, I don't see it so. I remember a day Awujale in his palace after our transactions and the meeting and all that. Awujale held plate on his hands like this and said, look, you are my guest. So just, you know, at the buffet, that okay, I should pick whatever you want to eat and all that. Then at one occasion there were series of installation rites to be done. We were there. I was there with my wife. Let me be precise. With Awujale, here, my wife there or something. And they were doing all these things that they had to do. My wife remarked that Awujale knew some of these Christian songs even more than choir masters or choristers.
Major Christians.
Honestly, ask anybody. Before they say this one, that one, and Awujale will say like this, you know, a man of deep candor and, you know. So, and when after all these things, they said this one, that one, he will be even the one where they, so things were done in our presence there. As I said, my wife was there, you know, just my wife, Awujale, and then we were there, everything. Then after the coronation, they said they had to take the Oba elect, now fully installed, to somewhere where they have to, you know, put him into regalia or whatever. So we couldn't do that before they bring him out, and then the, what do you call it? The jubilation and the merrymaking will start. While they went to do that, we were still there in the hall. I didn't see anything fetish. I can remember that day very well, very, very, very well. In between, while they went inside, we wouldn't know what they went to do. And Kabiyesi Awujale, myself, my wife, and then maybe some other chiefs and maybe some other lesser obas, you know, left there on the ITB in front. So we were waiting. And then, so when they eventually come back to say, well, Oba is fully installed and all that, and then they had to do this singing and all that. They did Kabiyesi, all this, whatever, whatever. So the next thing they said, we should come inside and eat. I'm going to eat with Oba Okinje Onita. Awujale said, look, let us sit down here, and then, you know, it was that kind of a radical. They said, well, what is it? If you want to eat anything, you know, go and bring it and all that. They pleaded. I can remember precisely. Some people were Kabiyesi, want to you know, a flat where we will go in and eat and do all that. Awujale insisted that we are comfortable here, we are okay here, that kind of a thing. I can remember that today because it was like a tug of war. We want to prepare and all that, you know, that's Awujale for you. And it was like, bring wine and all that. So the issue, you are.
We really have to go because our time is spent on the show, sir.
Okay, thank
but
you
then we
so
say a
much.
very big thank you for coming on the show today. We know that this conversation has not ended. We surely will have, you know, a more robust time to have this deep conversation with you, sir.
Thank you very
for
much.
honoring
Thank you
this
for joining
invite.
us this
We're
morning.
grateful.
Thank you, sir.
Grateful to God.
All right, and that wraps up the big story for today on Daybreak Live Extra. A truly enlightening and thought-provoking conversation, whether you believe in tradition, religion, or the blending of both. One thing is clear, Africa's spiritual identity continues to evolve. Remember, our culture is a relic of the past. It is the soul of our present and the voice of our future. Let the conversation continue in your homes, schools, places of worship, and most importantly, within yourself. My guest today has been Oba Ayedun Adeola Yinka, Obanla Adimola Ile Yoruba. Thank you for joining us in the studio today, sir. Samson Balogun is my name. Thanking you for being part of today's journey. Stay informed, stay conscious, and as always, stay true to your roots. See you next time.